wanted to talk to you all today about living with chronic illness and mental health. The reason why is because usually, if you're living with a chronic illness, you're living with mental health. And I just wanted to give an example of something I've been going through in the past couple of days. I had realized about a week ago that I was doing this downward spiral with my mental health, and I was having a really hard time with depression. And it had actually been for a while, it's been a couple of months. And I have a strategy of my own when I go through that downward spiral or going down that rabbit hole of mental health. But first, I want to tell you how it kind of adds to the chronic illness part. So even when I start feeling better, because I had gone through this strategy I'm about to tell you about, even when I started feeling better, my chronic illness was there to remind me that I don't have it all together. And somewhere in my mind and in my heart, that frustrated me so much that I would be reminded of the things that already make me feel bad about myself. I don't want to say insignificant. I know I'm not insignificant, but there are just some things about my chronic illness that remind me, hey, you're not who you used to be. So I'm walking along and I'm thinking, all is well. And I go to walk towards the steps, toward the steps. And my foot, because I have foot drop, caught the ground. My toe did. It caught the ground and I tripped. And I just did not look graceful at all. And when I laugh at some of the things that happened to me because of the multiple sclerosis, please know I'm not laughing at anybody else's ailment or the things they go through. But for me, it helps me to look at myself and say, okay, it wasn't really that bad. So for some reason or another, that day, it was that bad. It made me feel as though I stood out in the crowd, if you will. And here I am tripping, and I have to catch myself with my cane, which already makes me stand out in the crowd. And then as I go to talk to the person who is actually working on the house, I am at a loss for words. What I call, I can't find the I can't find a word that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a specific word. And to anyone else, they might just see it as, okay, so maybe she just doesn't know what she's talking about. But to me, I used to be a school teacher. I'm a speaker. It's like, I can't even find the words to say. And that's the processing part of multiple sclerosis. So I've come at this way to say to you that sometimes we have a problem, or I have a problem, and I believe other people who have chronic illness have a problem with their mental health for long periods of time, because we are constantly reminded of those things that we cannot do anymore, or things that make us feel incapable. And although other people might look at us and not see anything, because multiple sclerosis, it can be seen as an invisible illness. You don't really have to know anything's wrong with me if I trip. You don't know about the foot drop. You don't really have to know anything's wrong with me if I'm just walking with a cane. I may have hurt my ankle. You may not know that anything's wrong with me if I stumble over words or have a hard time with processing. People do it every day. Speakers do it when they just pause and go back into their speech. But for those of us with a chronic illness, it's that reminder of things aren't the same, things aren't what we want it to be, things aren't going my way. And you could take that and start going down that rabbit hole of mental health. And if you're not careful, you will begin that downward spiral. So, what I have created is called the 5R method. And it's helped me to relieve some of those times that depression or anxiety pop up on me. So we're going to begin with the first R. And the first R is recognize. I realized eventually that I have to be able to recognize what is going on around me. And if you're not someone who struggles with mental health, this may help you to help someone else who might be struggling with mental health. But I realized that something was going on with me when I finally was willing to recognize that my room was in disarray. Sounds like, oh, your room is just messy, so clean up. No, my room is in order. But all of a sudden, things just started to be around. I didn't care as much. I wasn't taking the time that I usually take to do certain things. There might be someone around you who is doing something completely opposite of how they handle situations. And sometimes we say, oh, I didn't know they were depressed because they didn't say anything. Sometimes you just have to recognize when you're going through or when someone else is going through, and then you're able to step in and help. So next comes the 4 R's, the following 4 R's. And they are reflect, reinforce, reinvent, and reengage. And under each of those R's, I actually have specific strategies that you can use in order to reflect or in order to reinforce. So when I recognized that I was going through depression, and that I had been going through it for a little while because things were messy and I had been sleeping long. I had been sleeping until 10, 11 o'clock in the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I don't do that. I get up at 7. I start my day the same way. I make my bed. I make sure that things are organized in my room. I go and do whatever I have to do. I have a routine. When someone breaks from their routine that they've done for a long period of time, you can set your watch to them. You need to recognize that there might be something going on. You might want to talk to them about that. So back to the other 4 R's. So when I was going through that, I realized that reinforce was probably something I needed more of. The strategy I chose under reinforce, and reinforce is to strengthen things. I needed to strengthen the way I was looking and thinking about myself. So I chose affirmations. Again, I have several strategies under reinforce. What's going to help me at that moment? Affirmations, the fact that I knew I had to say to myself, You are strong. You are talented. You're beautiful. I had to keep reminding myself of who I am and whose I am. God loves you. You are loved. You are you are wanted. You are worth it. And some people don't even think to say those things during the day. But what if I kept reminding myself that I am confident, I am healthy, I am enough? Then maybe some of those things that I start to go through that triggered that mental health, those emotions of not being enough, of sticking out or standing out, I would have felt strengthened from the beginning of the day, from onset of getting out of bed and saying that in the mirror, who I am. So that is just one thing, one category in the reinforce. So I'm going to continue to come on and talk about this. I just want to bring awareness to the fact that there are one of three people in the world, every one of three people have a chronic illness. I mean, that's amazing. In the world, 1 in 3. That's a lot of people, and we pass people every day and never know what they're going through. And when I used to talk through my lives or on my lives, probably about 2 years ago, I remember that I would always say at the end, be kind to one another because you never know what the next person is going through. This is the same thing. You never know if someone's dealing with a chronic illness, they're dealing with an invisible illness, or even if they're dealing with mental health problems. So be kind to one another because you never know what the next person is going through. And stay tuned for us to go back through some of those 5 R's.